This video will cover the new Colorado EV charging land use model code, what it is, what it isn't, and how we got here. The EV charging land use model code is applicable to land use regulations, local government land use regulations for direct current fast charging or DCFC charging projects. These projects are most typically installed as a new accessory use in existing parking lots. In some cases, they may also be purpose-built as a new accessory use as part of a larger new development project, or even less frequently, they may be a new primary use on their own property where the only use is EV charging. The EV charging land use model code is not applicable to slower levels of EV charging, such as level 2 or level 1 charging. And the EV charging land use model code is different from the Colorado Model Electric Ready and Solar Ready code, which sets requirements for local governments to require new development to have minimum amounts of EV ready, capable, and installed parking spaces. Additionally, it is implemented through building codes, which is different than the EV charging land use model code, which is implemented through land use regulations. So, how did we get here? In 2022 and 2024, the Colorado Energy Office conducted a stakeholder process and published the EV charging permitting study based on that process. The main recommendations that came out of that and that are included in the study are that local governments should have some EV charging specific land use regulations in their zoning codes, that those regulations should ideally use objective standards, and in most cases allow EV charging projects to be approved administratively by planning department staff rather than going to public hearings through a planning commission or a city council or a board of county commissioners. Additionally, the standards should be aligned with the typical charging project siting and design, which will minimize the need for lengthy review processes and for variances. In 2024, the Colorado legislature passed House Bill 241173, which requires by the end of 2025, counties with 20,000 and more people and municipalities with 10,000 and more people to take one of three compliance actions. They can either adopt the EV charging model code, which we're talking about today. They can adopt specific prescribed permitting standards and processes that are included directly in the House bill, or they can adopt an ordinance or resolution opting out of making any changes to EV charging regulations if they believe their regulations are sufficient and working well as they are today. This is a list of Colorado municipalities that are subject to the bill. And this is a list of counties subject to the bill. A complete list of these municipalities and counties is available on the Colorado Energy Office website. So to get into more detail on what is contained in the EV charging land use model code, local governments that choose to comply with the bill by adopting the code will amend their land use regulations to do these main things. There's much more detail in the code, of course, but this is the high level stuff. So first of all, they will define DCFC charging projects as a land use type, and they will allow them as a use by right in most zoning districts, meaning they can be approved by planning staff rather than going to public hearings. They will also exempt parking spaces that are replaced, existing parking spaces that are replaced by EV charging spaces or by new EV charging infrastructure from minimum parking requirements. This is actually already required by an existing state law, but we're including it here for consistency. The standards can be no more restrictive than the standards of the EV charging model code in regulating site and design considerations such as setbacks, landscaping, and screening. This means that the EV charging model code sets the most restrictive standard that is permissible, and local governments can choose to be as restrictive as those standards, to have standards that are somewhat less restrictive EV charging, or not regulate these items at all. But they may not be more restrictive. Finally, local governments would provide clear, publicly available information on what the applicable permitting process and application requirements are for potential EV charging permit applicants. That means applicants should be able to figure out on the local government's website what the permitting process looks like, about how long it takes, what departments would review, what might be required in a permit application, what fees are, and who to contact if they want to take more steps in the process. So right now, the Colorado Energy Office has published a draft of the model code on our website. It's about a 90% draft. We believe that our attempt was for it to balance the state's goal of encouraging more EV charging with local government's ability to regulate EV charging according to their own contexts. And we hope that the model code will be local government's preferred compliance path with the bill. With this in mind, we're accepting local government feedback, especially from local governments subject to the bill, on the model code through April through a survey. And a final draft of the model code will be published in May based on feedback we receive. We strongly encourage you, if you're a local government, to fill out the survey, read the model code. We would truly appreciate your feedback. Finally, there's a couple other ways that the Colorado Energy Office will be supporting local governments with implementing the model code. The first task, which we're working on now, is finalizing the model code itself. After that, we will be supporting local government adoption of the code by providing a free on-call land use code writing consultant that can review your existing land use code, look at the model code, and help you write code language to integrate the standards and processes of the model code into your existing code. After that, we'll be providing some training materials through documents you can download, as well as webinars to train your planning staff on interpreting and applying the standards of the model code to potential EV charging permit projects. That's all. Thanks so much.